Hello, my name is Hannah, and this is my story, a story that began in the quiet fields of Sugar Creek, Ohio, within the close-knit Amish community where I was raised. I was just 18 years old when my father sold me, not in the literal sense of money changing hands, but in the way that mattered most in our world. He gave me away in marriage to a man I had never spoken to, never chosen, and never even dreamed of. His name was Ezra Mullet, a 50-year-old widower, a respected furniture maker in our community, and a father to 4 children whose ages ranged from 11 to 20. To me, at that tender age, he seemed like an old man with a long gray beard and broad shoulders shaped by years of hard work. It happened one ordinary morning while I was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of warm oatmeal for my family. My father walked into the kitchen with a serious expression and simply said, "Ezra Mullet has asked for your hand in marriage, and I have given my blessing." There was no discussion, no asking how I felt, and certainly no chance for me to refuse. In our Amish upbringing, a daughter was taught from childhood to obey her father, then her bishop, and eventually her husband. Questioning that order was not something we were encouraged to do. I often think back to the Bible story of Isaac and Rebekah in Genesis chapter 24. When Abraham's servant brought Rebekah to be Isaac's wife, the family asked her directly, "Will you go with this man?" And she answered, "I will go." She was given a choice. I was not even offered that small dignity. My life changed in that single moment in the kitchen, and the 3-mile buggy ride from my father's house to Ezra's felt like crossing into an entirely different world. When I arrived at Ezra's home, it still carried the heavy presence of his first wife, Martha, who had passed away from illness 6 years earlier. Her curtains still hung on the windows, her carefully organized kitchen tools remained in their exact places, and her handmade quilts lay folded on the beds. I felt like an intruder walking through someone else's memories. For many months, I didn't dare move a single thing. It was as if Martha's spirit still watched over the house, and I was merely a temporary replacement. Our wedding took place on a chilly Thursday in November at my parents' home. It was a simple Amish ceremony filled with scripture readings, hymns sung in our traditional slow style, and words from the bishop about a wife's duties and a husband's responsibilities. I wore a beautiful blue dress that my mother had sewn with love. During the service, Ezra's youngest daughter, 11-year-old Miriam, gave me a small, shy smile, the only warm moment in what felt like a very cold day. Ezra's oldest son, Daniel, barely looked at me at all. Ezra was not a cruel man. He provided well for the family. The house was always warm, the pantry stayed full, and he worked hard every day. But he treated me more like a necessary function in the household than a partner or a young woman with her own dreams and feelings. I was expected to cook, clean, raise his children as if they were my own, and keep everything running smoothly. At 18, I had never been kissed, never chosen anyone for myself, and never felt that my thoughts truly mattered to anyone. Slowly, a gentle connection began to form with little Miriam. She started following me around the house, asking endless curious questions about life, about faraway cities she had never seen, about family, and even about death. One day she asked if love disappears when someone dies. I told her softly that real love never truly goes away, it stays in our hearts and in the memories we carry. That simple conversation opened a door, and Miriam began to see me not just as her new stepmother, but as someone she could trust and lean on. Over time, a quiet strength started growing inside me. I began making small changes in the house. I rearranged the kitchen to suit my way of working, replaced some of the old curtains with brighter ones I had sewn, and reorganized the pantry so everything felt more like my own space. These small acts were my first steps toward claiming a little piece of agency in a life that had been decided for me. At community gatherings after church, I started speaking up more boldly. I asked questions that had an edge to them, questions about what was truly reasonable in our traditions and rules. People noticed, especially the bishop's wife, who sometimes gave me concerned looks. The real turning point came during a March community meeting. The bishop was discussing whether to lift the shunning of a woman who had left her abusive husband. I raised my hand and stood up. With my voice steady but filled with emotion, I quoted from Ephesians chapter 5. "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." I argued that when a husband harms his wife instead of cherishing her, the sacred marriage covenant is already broken, and leaving to protect herself should not be condemned. A heavy silence fell over the room. The bishop simply told me to sit down. Later that evening, the bishop met with Ezra for nearly 2 hours. I waited anxiously at home, hearing only low murmurs. When Ezra returned, something had shifted in him. He looked at me differently, really saw me for the first time. He admitted that I had been right about the covenant of marriage. He confessed that he had treated our union as nothing more than a practical arrangement and that he had not truly seen me as a person with her own heart and voice. He asked if we could try to do better, to build something real together. 5 years have passed since that day. I am now 23 years old. I still live in the same house, but it truly feels like mine now, with curtains I chose, a kitchen arranged the way I like, and a life I have helped shape. Miriam is 16 now, and she continues to ask me all kinds of questions. I answer her honestly, encouraging her to think for herself. Ezra and I have chosen each other, even though we didn't get to choose at the beginning. Our relationship is not perfect, but it is growing. I speak at community meetings now without waiting for permission, and I refuse to disappear into silence. Staying and speaking my truth, these have become my quiet acts of courage, and for now, they are enough.